The recording is live again, and I'm going to do the next session using MP Studio. We'll talk about MP deployment best practices. So there's quite a bit more to that. Really what we're going to do is look at it as initially from the angle of an author using MP Studio to do authoring, and we'll just make a couple of edits to an MP I've already got, and then I'll get into some of the best practices that include auditing your changes as you author a management pack, documentation, and some of the automation options for that. Then we'll talk about override management, creating overrides. So this is a part of the authoring experience. You'll want to create overrides to help your team customize the behavior of the management pack that you're authoring. So we'll talk about override management. We'll cover the testing feature, which simulates a management pack running against a computer on your network. And then we'll talk about deploying that management pack. So I'll be working with different management packs as we go along, but imagine that you're working with the one that you've been authoring. So, okay, without further ado, we'll get right into this. And it's great to see so many customers connected and watching and learning about using MP Studio. Lots and lots of MP Author users are connected as well, so that's great. Welcome to today's session. So this is about 45 minutes, which is excellent. It gives me lots of time to show you the stuff I need to show. And as with any of the sessions we do today, if you would like a one-on-one session, so that you can invite your team to join in and ask specific questions, you're welcome to send me an email and request that one-on-one demo. Okay, I think Mike might have already exposed this to a certain extent, but let me give you a little orientation on the console. This is the MP Studio console, and on the top left corner you can see the two main objects here. I've got the store database, and there are three special folder types I want to tell you about in here. The first one is the sealed folder. And as you author your management packs and then seal them and import them into MP Studio store database, you can do that with a right click on the root of the store and add sealed management packs from any folder. You can download them from Microsoft and then add those to the database, but you can also author your own management pack. So for example, under the Select Software Inc. folder, we do have one management pack in there, Dell, Comtrade, and then there's the Microsoft Corporation folder, and all the Microsoft sealed MPs go in here. I'll just scroll down here a little bit and let's take a look at, for example, Windows Server 2012 R2 monitoring. I have two different versions in the store database. So this is the first best practice I'll talk about. As you download sealed management packs, don't import them directly into your Operations Manager environment. Bring them into MP Studio store database first. Okay. The second special folder type in the store database, and this is new in 7.1, so you may not see this if you're running a previous version, the backup folder. So this represents a backup for each registered management group, and I've got two management groups registered here, my lab and my corporate environment. And so if you set up the backup or you just simply run an ad hoc backup, MP Studio will copy any unsealed management packs that have changed into the store database. Okay, so you can schedule that backup to happen, and there's another best practice. Schedule that backup to run every evening. You can also set up email subscription, and this is going to be a common dialog box when you're working with automation for reporting on audit history, for doing backups, for doing group compare, or just simply documenting an MP. You have the option to set up email subscription or publishing to a folder using this scheduling feature. So best practice, run that backup for your management groups, and that will copy any unsealed management packs into the store database if they've changed, if they have a new version number. Okay, so just a side note, if you edit an override MP using the native tools, it doesn't automatically increment the version of that MP, so it won't get backed up unless you manually edit the version number, and you can do that natively. if you make the changes in MP Studio, we do that for you. Okay, so we'll increment version numbers. So back to this folder, let's just give you an example. From this particular management pack, I have several copies of my override management pack for Windows Server 2012 R2. And I can bring up the audit history, and we can look at that at any time. I can run that for an individual management pack. I can run it for that backup folder, okay? And we can look at the audit history for all management packs from that management group. I can also schedule that, same scheduling window we saw earlier. So there's my backup folders. I've got 2 management groups registered, so that's why I've got 2 folders underneath the backup folder. Third folder type in the store is more of a working folder, if I could call it that. I've got one here called my sandbox. And as I author management packs, I'll save them in here until I seal them, because I've got a lot of work to do. And that's why you need a copy of MP Studio. There's more to do besides just authoring the management pack. And I'm going to talk some more about that in the next 40 minutes or so. Okay, so I've got 2 management groups registered down below, and just for clarity, these are my installed MPs, and we can do lots of stuff in there. We can create overrides, we can delete unsealed management packs, so lots of options. But to begin working with a management pack, all you need to do is right click. And you can do things like view the reference tree, document it, create overrides for it, compare it to an MP in the store database or to a file you've downloaded, or you could compare it to an installed version of in another management group. You can also initiate testing of management packs that are in the management group. So you can work online with management packs. If you make changes to a production MP, there could be, an impact in your production environment, right? Because that management pack is in there. That's one of the huge benefits working with MP Studio, is you can put your management packs in the store database and work offline. And that includes authoring, adding rules, monitors, editing those, creating overrides, all that good stuff. You can test the management pack offline, and I'll show that feature to you as well. Okay, let's get right into this. I'm going to open up a management pack that I'd already been working with. Let's do this maybe first. Just before I do that, if you want to start new with a brand new management pack, you've got your project folder and you just choose create new management pack, and that'll launch the wizard to start building your management pack. So I'm not going to do a lot of authoring here. I'll more make some edits, but I wanted to show you, here's the difference really between MP Author Professional and MP Author and MP Studio. I've got the store database available to me, and so I can save my MPs right into the store database. Okay, what that means is as I make changes to it and keep saving it into the store database, MP Studio will track those changes for me. Okay, so I'm just going to hit next and we'll finish this up. And here in my new project folder is that MP we just created. And so I can now start adding any elements I want, all the various monitors. And you can see here the ones not available in MP Author include the SNMP ones, of course, dependency rollup monitor and aggregate rollup monitor. Those are advanced authoring capabilities, as is the process monitor, creating a process monitor, okay? So same for rules, right click, start adding my rules, discoveries, okay? So you can right click and start your authoring experience. All right, so I'm not going to do much with this. However, I will open another management pack that I've been working on before. And you can see I've made lots of changes to this, and perhaps I want to refresh my memory. I can simply come in, right-click, and choose to view the audit history, and from here, pick up where I left off. Maybe I want to see if anybody else has worked on this MP. If I group by, change by, I can see I'm the only one done any work so far on this management pack. So you can customize that grid, make it easier to find certain things if you wanted to just review the audit history. So for example, here I can see I changed the confirmed delivery from true to false on that particular element. Okay, so let's actually open this MP up. So I can double click on it, or I can right click and choose View Edit. And lots of ways to start making changes in here once you've already done it. Maybe one guy has built most of the management pack, but you've been tagged with the responsibility to finish that up. And so I'm just going to show you some of the ways to make changes. Let's pick one of these monitors, and I'll point out, and perhaps Mike already demonstrated this, but the Properties View Edit panel on the rightmost side displays quite a bit about this monitor, and in fact anything that's shown in bold, black, you can edit that. So I can change the enabled status, for example, from false to, I'll just pick on essential monitoring. Okay, alert on state, there's something else. I can just go in and change from warning to error. So that's one way to make changes to that. Okay, you could also, if you wanted to, you could come in, look at the XML, make some changes in here. Let's see, auto resolve, alert priority. And let's change from mutable from true to false. Okay, so you can edit the XML for an individual element. Okay. In addition, because I haven't sealed this yet, you have the option to add more rules and monitors, discoveries, command tasks. These are items that are new, I believe, in 7.1. Okay, so right-click when in doubt to discover those new options for adding to your management pack. Okay, so I'm going to point out in the upper right-hand corner. Let me see if I can grab a marker here to show this to you. But up here in the version number, you can see there is now an asterisk beside the .11. And over here in the store database where we picked this management pack from, that's my version .11. But we've made some changes, and so that asterisk tells me I need to make sure to save those changes. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. There's a Save MP. If you happen to close the MP, it'll prompt you and warn you that you should save those changes. So we're just going to save that. Now, every time you modify the management pack in the store database, in other words, what you've done is you've made a change, but this is now being compared to the previous copy in the store database. And so what we can see here, we've incremented the revision number to 12, and we're showing a summary of the edits. So we have a total of 4 changes, and we can see down below in the table more detail on those changes. So for example, alert on state, as you saw earlier, I changed it from warning to error. And there our other changes are listed here as well. Now, let me point out, we're tracking who made the change. Those credentials are being saved, and we're also tracking the time of the change. If that data is important for your change management, the only way to do that automatically is to use MP Studio. So I encourage you to use MP Studio for making your changes, and that includes override management packs. And one more thing I'll point out here is you can add some comments here, maybe a work order number or who requested the change, or maybe you want to keep track of some special notes why a change was made. And once you're done adding any comments you want to, hit save, and that will add a new version. And so over on the left-hand side, we can see now our version 100.12 is in the database. Okay, so we've just modified the MP. You could add rules and monitors, and it'll catch that as well. Maybe we'll just quickly add an event monitor here. And I'll just without putting a great deal of thought here behind what I'm actually selecting, we'll just pick from the, let's use the security log. and event ID equals, we'll just randomly grab something, and you could have a second one in here if you want as well. We'll stick with event source, and there we have it. I'm just going to step through this and accept most of the default settings here just to save time. Really what I want, whoops, let's go back and set this to generate alert. You can modify those settings if you want to, but I just want to add to this. You'll notice in the version number in the tab up above, there's that asterisk again. If I was to just close this, we'll get prompted, do you want to save those changes? And of course we do, so I'll click save. This is the preview of the audit history. And this time we've added several things. We've changed version number, so we're tracking previous and new values for that. I won't add comments right now, but you could do that as well. Okay, so those changes are captured in the stored database. We've got our version control here. At this point, you could do a lot of different things here, and that's really what this session is all about, is what do you do after you've authored your management pack. So we've already had a quick peek at that audit history. So one of the things I would do is, if you're spending some time, or even if you've got a team working on a management pack, set up some automation for reporting. And you'll be able to have this set up. You can have this published to a folder, and you can set up the email subscription so all the stakeholders can get a copy of the audit history. And so everyone will know what changes are occurring with that management pack. Okay, so we're not going to take a look at that audit history just yet. We'll look at the audit history for another MP afterwards. But the next thing you might want to do is to document this management pack and just straight up see what that looks like. Okay, so we're going to document this to a workbook. And so hang on one second. Yeah, so we're going to document this to a workbook. This is a feature that also supports scheduling. And here's our workbook, and there's not a lot in this management pack, but you can see across the bottom there's a separate tab for each element. So we're looking at the manifest here. Here's the one rule, 4 monitors, and if I scroll to the right, you'd see all the data in there for that monitor. Here's the overridable parameters, so I could create some overrides, language packs, string resources, so all that data is in there. And since we're talking about documentation, I'll also point out, let's see, I'm going to come back to, here is a management pack that I've opened in the management group. And this is the Windows Server 2012 operating system. Okay, and the same documentation option is available here. Just right click. You could create an HTML report, or you can create the workbook. You can also schedule this. So if that's, for example, an override MP, and it's going through a period of lots of changes, you might want to set up an email subscription and share that management pack document with the stakeholders. Okay, so the Excel workbook, let me just show you what that looks like. I've already got this ready, and if we look at the bottom here, I'm going to go back to the summary. So here's the summary for this management pack, and this next tab is my rules, and so on and so forth. We can go across and look at the monitors, but now you're seeing something a little bit different here. In the shaded blue, what we're actually looking at is the override that has been created for the element just above. So we can see row 5 is an override that's been created for the rule directly above it. Okay, let's have a quick look at monitors. And so here we can see, once again in the blue, we've got several overrides that have been created for the unit monitor above. Now there's a lot of data in there. You may choose to go in there and not necessarily show all of that data. So we're going to keep that report handy, because later we're going to come back and take a look at the referencing overrides. Okay, so coming back to the main console, that's the documentation piece, but I do want to point out one more thing on this. Let's see if we've still got We'll just quickly open that management pack again. Let's come into our monitors. Okay, so yes, it can be scheduled. You can look at the workbook right from here as well for that management pack that you're authoring. Okay, so that was the report that we already saw, but the other option is if you just want to document an individual element like the monitors, you've got the Export to Excel toolbar button available. And that will just document the current view or the table in the current view. And notice it's also grouped by target. So whatever custom grouping you set up in your console view, that's how we'll display this report. Okay, so if we come back here, we just drop target back in here. So now we're looking at it, without any special grouping. If I hit Export to Excel, it'll change that up. So it just allows you to get a little more flexibility in that reporting. So lots of ways to document. I like that complete workbook just because it gives you all the elements across the bottom, but if you're just looking for something on an ad hoc basis, very easy to just go in and use that Export to Excel. Anytime you see a table in the view, that would be the way to go about it. Okay, so we're moving along pretty good here. We've covered the auditing piece by looking at the changes as we've made changes to that management pack. We've talked about the 3 different ways of documenting management packs. One is just an ad hoc method. Another one is to set up the viewing, and the third is to set up a schedule. If you have set up the scheduled option, there is another way to go in and manage scheduled tasks. So you'll see there's several things you could schedule. We already talked about scheduling your audit history report. We talked about scheduling your backup. So all of those can be managed once you've created the schedule through Tools, Manage Scheduled Tasks. Okay, next I want to talk about overrides, creating overrides, and I'm not going to do that with the MP that I've been authoring, but rather I'd work with my, let's see, we're going to go into the Microsoft folder. Here we have Microsoft Corporation, and I'm going to scroll down. We'll work with one of the Windows MPs. And so what I'm going to do, let's just take a look. We've got a couple of Windows Server 2012 R2 monitoring. And to refresh my memory, I'm going to just take a quick look in my sandbox folder to see which of these I was working with last. And so I've got Windows Server 2012 monitoring overrides MP that I say I've got this responsibility to improve or optimize the override management pack. So let's open up that, and we'll continue to create some more overrides. Now keep in mind, we're doing this offline, so any changes I make are not impacting my production environment. So here I've got the latest version, at least the latest one I have, and we can do things like look at the reference tree first, and this will give you, a pretty good picture of what other management packs are referenced. And if I was to deploy this MP into production, then I would need all these references. Okay, so let's go ahead and view this MP. And I'm just going to move that Properties View Edit out of the way. We'll create a little more real estate here. Okay, so from here I can simply select whatever element I want, for example, monitors. And let me talk about this grid a little bit because there's so much flexibility in here. I've already customized this a little bit by doing things like hiding various columns. So you can right-click and hide a column. And this just gives you some insight into how MP Studio sort of strips away a layer of complexity, if you will, from the native tool. It just makes it that much easier to see what you want to work with. Let's see some other options in here. I could use this filter option and say I only want to see the performance health monitors. So that just removes the others out of the view. I'm going to bring that back. So you can also customize the grouping by one or more columns. Lots of flexibility on how you display these. Okay, so I'm going to leave it grouped by target. And first let's go in and we'll just pick one of these monitors, logical disk performance roll-up. And if I right-click, you can see some of the options here. I can create knowledge for this, and I will point out one of the things our customers really like about MP Studio is that you can do this knowledge authoring without having a copy of Visual Studio or Office installed where you're running MP Studio. So it's quite easy. You need to pick the management pack where you're going to save these, and we do have a project folder here. I'm just going to select that. And so now I can start authoring any of the knowledge I want to. Very simple. I sometimes forget to demonstrate that, but it is a popular feature. Okay, so it doesn't like an alias I'm using there, but it's probably user error, and I won't waste any time trying to sort through that, but let's keep going and we'll start working with some of the overrides. And so right-click, Manage Overrides, exposes the properties that are available to me. So here I can see I've got 5 different properties, and I just need to check which ones I want to create. And then I can go in and modify the setting that is displayed here. So for example, I can change the, I'm just going to make some random edits to all of these, auto-resolve. I'll change the alert priority to normal, alert on state to success. Again, these don't make sense. I'm just making changes to them. Now here, just above that table is the destination management pack. So you want to make sure you're saving these in the right spot. And all these changes are offline, so there's no impact in my production environment. And that's the beauty of this. You don't even have to be connected to a management group in order to work with management packs that are in the store database. Okay, so we'll go ahead, hit OK to save these changes. Now, remember this dialog box came up before when we were editing and adding rules and monitors or modifying those monitors earlier. And so this shows me we've incremented the revision from 110 to 111. And we've had 5 additions and 1 change since the last time this was modified. Okay, so the version number changed, so we've got a previous and new value there. Notice we're tracking who made the change, the time of the change. The details are in here as to what's being done. I can add some comments in there and hit save. Okay, so we've just modified the override MP from the sealed MP, and that's the whole intent here, is to start creating overrides to tune this management pack so it generates less unnecessary alerts. Now, it's a bit of a cart and a horse thing. You might actually want to test this MP before you create overrides. And I will be demonstrating the test feature here shortly. And so we'll see that here shortly. So that's creating overrides for a single element. Next, I'm going to demonstrate bulk override management. We'll do this twice. What I'm going to do here is just pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I've selected 10 different monitors. That'll keep it simple. We're going to now choose Manage Overrides, and this time MP Studio is going to discover only the common properties in the 10 monitors I've highlighted. So in this particular case, sorry, I said monitors. These are rules. So no surprise, it only discovered 1. Actually, why don't we do this? Since how we're working with rules, let's select all. So now we've selected 97 rules. Choose Manage Overrides. Naturally, once again, enable status is the only one that's common, and so we're going to set that to false for all 97. Some of those may already be set to false, but any that were not already set to false will now be set to false. Notice up above, it's putting them all in the correct unsealed management pack. And so this is just pointing out we're creating a new override. Here's several that are being changed. We'll hit yes. It's applying those changes, incrementing the version number, and notice that's my override MP where we're saving these changes. And I do notice there's questions coming in, which is great, and hopefully it looks like Dan is answering most of those, and we'll have some time at the end to come back to them if there's anything I need to show as well. So this is the preview of the audit history, and we can see previous and new values in here. Okay, so if you've got change management committees, this audit history is going to be very useful. Or if your manager is just asking for a little accountability on your time, you can show them the audit history and say, here's all the work I did today to tune this management pack. Okay, so that audit history is very useful. If you're troubleshooting, one of the first things you look at is what's changed recently. Okay, so we'll save those changes in this stored database, and we're going to go look at that MP shortly. One more demonstration of the bulk override management, because I think it shows much better when we look at monitors, because there's a lot more properties available for monitors. Okay, so to demonstrate this, let's pick so we got 7 different monitors selected. We'll pick Manage Overrides. MP Studio is going to look at only the common properties, and as I mentioned, it does have a lot more available. These are all common. So we've got Enable Status, Generate Alerts. We have Auto Resolve, Alert Priority. We've got Alert on State, and Alert Severity. So now all I have to do is set these properties to the value I want. So we're going to set the Enable Status to True. We want these generating alert. We'll leave that. Maybe for now we're going to set Auto Resolve to False, because we want to make sure we're catching that, and I don't want it disappearing, but we could come back and change it later. Alert Priority, let's see if we can bump that up. Alert on State, let's set that to Error. Alert Severity, we'll set that to Error as well. So if you're starting to think about what would I actually use this for in the real world, let's say you want to implement a standard value for auto resolve, or maybe you're just looking to do a bulk disable while you're making some changes to the environment. So this bulk override management will help you significantly with addressing that issue. Okay, so just doing a time check. We've incremented the version. We can see down below we've made 25 changes here. We can see the details down below, the previous and new value. All that information is being captured, and then we can see that once again in the audit history. We'll take a quick look at that in a minute. Let's save those changes. And now what we're going to do is we're actually going to open that override MP itself. Scroll back up to my project folder. Okay, so here's that version, the latest version. It also shows, you know, the last time we made edits was at 1:34 on November 16th. There were 25 changes. Okay, so let's double click on that to open the override MP itself. So we'll select overrides. Let's create some more real estate here once again. And you'll come up with your own way to customize this view. For overrides, I typically group by context, for example. Okay, and you might want to just adjust where some of these columns are. I can pin some of these columns. Let's bring value over there as well. So now when we go to the, I might even hide the parent I mean, you probably won't, but you could hide columns. And so now we can see quite a bit of data about these overrides, and they're grouped by context. So just, not that this would necessarily make sense for you to do, but if you needed to do a bulk edit, you could go in here and do a bulk delete. Okay. So this is a little bit different than creating overrides in the previous method that we did. In this particular case, I have to save these changes. It's not done for me automatically. But if I was to close this, it'll prompt me and say, hey, do you want to save those changes? It also puts the asterisk beside the version number. And so I'll hit Save MP. That's going to put another version in, the newest copy compared to the last copy. You're starting to get familiar with this dialog box now. So we made some changes. We did a bulk delete there. Let's try another type of change. If we bring back this Properties View Edit and select an override, you can also make changes in there. So for example, the enforce status, anything in bold in that Properties View Edit, you can make changes over there. You can right-click on an individual element and choose to edit that override. And then from the drop-down box, change a value like that. You can right-click and view and edit the XML if you wanted to do that. Change this enforced value. We might have actually just changed that. So I won't do the XML edit, but the takeaway here is create, manage, and edit overrides from the sealed MP, but you can also open up the override MP itself and then go in there and make changes. If you're authoring management packs, I'm sure you're going to need overrides, so you can create overrides there, create your override MP, and create that package to ship that to the users, or the admin is going to be managing those management packs. Okay, so let's take a look at the audit history in here one more time. We've got one more core feature, two more core features I want to show, so we're going to move on to that here very quickly. Group by changed by, and I apologize for the background noise. The city's doing some tree management work in my front yard. And so we can very quickly come in here and sort through these and get a look at changes that were made in the past. And if I want to document this, I can simply use that export to Excel, and that's one way to document this audit history. Remember, that spreadsheet's going to have the same grouping as we saw earlier. Some examples of that. Okay, so let's take a look at the test feature. And I'm going to do this a couple of different ways. Let's go back to our test MP here. And I'm going to step through the wizard with this. I doubt I'm going to get any alerts from this, but I want to show you the wizard, and then what we're going to do is we're going to look at some historical test results. Okay, so this, while we're here, these are tests that I've run in the past, and we can see, for example, this one generated 11 alerts. That was a test I did on 19th of October. So we're going to come back and look at that in a minute. So you've authored that MP before you put in production, and maybe even before you create your overrides, you'd want to test it. So let's take a look at the wizard. And the wizard will, have a few simple things I need to enter. One of those is going to be specifying the computer I want to run the test against. I'm just going to run it against a local host, but you can run it against one or more servers on your network. You need to have local administrator privileges. Okay, just like running perfmon or remote registry editor or what else am I thinking of? Anyways, you need to have local administrator privileges to run those utilities, right? So MP Studio, when it runs the test, it's using the same protocol. And it's going to connect to that server that you specified, and it's going to run a test for the duration that you specify here. So I recommend probably a 1-hour test to get, lots of data, and that can also be delayed to run that test later in the day. Okay, so we're going to sample the event logs every minute. We're going to sample perfmon counters every 10 seconds. We'll run the discovery, whatever type of discovery the MP uses, whether it's registry-based or WMI or script-based. We'll run that. and make that data available in the reporting as well. So that's all there is to running this test. Why don't we kick this off? Again, this is just an MP I threw together. There's not much in it, so I doubt we'll get any alerts on this, but just so you can get an idea what's going on, I'll describe this. It's recreating the health model, and it's confirming permissions to the server I'm running the test against. It's, if there's a script involved that needs to be run out there, then we will map a drive and drop the necessary files out there and start running that script for the duration of the test. And all that data gets pulled back to MP Studio and gets compared to the configuration of the rules and monitors in that management pack. Okay, so this test is running now. It's collecting data. Presumably, let's see if it's actually collecting data. While it's running, you can look at the details. And in fact, we are getting some data from my Garmin service. And let's see if we can chart anything. And you can simply double click, or you can right click and choose to chart. Okay, so that one's not actually showing much. So let's come back to the first one. Now, if any alerts occurred, they would show up as a dotted vertical line. If any events occurred, they would show up as a solid vertical line. And so this test continues to run. We would see events also show in the event log tab. We can look at the discovery here. So if you've authored a management pack, it'd be really good to run the test and come in and confirm that you're collecting the data that you expected. So typically I'd take that last column and move it over beside my target. And then I could scroll down and look at each individual target and see the properties right beside it. Okay, so let's come back to that view of the chart. I don't see any alerts here, so maybe while this is running, in fact, I'm not anticipating any, and for the sake of time, I'm going to stop that test, and we're going to switch to a historical test that will show some resultant set of alerts. So I'll close off this one. We'll close off the test results. Let's go back here. Okay, here's the one that generated all the alerts in a previous test that I'd run. So I recommend running a baseline test. All your key management packs, you can run that test and you know, have a benchmark, if you will, that for a 1 hour test, this MP generated, you know, 20 alerts in January, but then you added a service pack or changed the hardware, user changed how they use the application or whatever, and now you're starting to get more alerts. You could run another test to see, or maybe you're doing a health check, or maybe you're deploying a new management pack. You can test that management pack before putting in production. And I'm guessing of the hundreds of people on the call here today, that most of you, if not all of you, have experienced alert storms that were unnecessary. And I've heard horror stories of anywhere from 1,000, 10,000, even 1,000,000 alerts is the worst case scenario I've ever heard. And that basically crippled the entire support team, not to mention operations manager. So that's why you test your MPs. That's why you test MPs that you author. You want to find those alerts and evaluate, gee, should I create an override to customize this a little bit, or is the alert valid? Maybe it is valid. Let's take a couple minutes to quickly, and I know the guy doing the next session, so I might steal a couple of minutes from him. Let's take a look at the details of this test. In this case, since the test is completed, MP Studio has calculated things like the minimum values, maximum values, standard deviation, etc. And you can go in here and you can chart one or more counters. Okay, and that's a little bit crowded. I could flip through these different ones, but let's come back and we'll just pick one of these. Create a little more real estate here. So here's average just seconds per read. Lots of stuff happening. The horizontal lines are standard deviation values. Orange one is maximum, green is average. So you just put your mouse over there to get that information. Dotted vertical lines everywhere, so these jump out. Let's see what they are if I put the mouse over it. Those are alerts that occurred during the test. Okay, solid vertical lines, we have some of those. And these are color-coded as well. That's an information alert. There's an orange dotted line. These are normal priority alerts. And so we can select the event log tab and see the events here. We could group by index or source, whatever made sense. Okay, all this data I'm showing you can be exported to Excel if you wanted to share that with other stakeholders. Okay, so let's come back to the chart, and we already talked about the discoveries. So here's a preview of the alerts, but this is a little bit of a legacy report that this gets exported. But if you want to do more with those alerts or understand better what's going on, pick result instead of alerts. Just before I explain what we're looking at here, I meant to say the box you test against has to have the SCOM agent installed. So you need the agent out there. You do not need the management pack in production. And although this is a simulation, you can see we're collecting perfmon data, event data, and discovery data, and comparing that against the management pack and reporting that information. And we're running that. You could run a test for a day or a week if you want, a minimum of 5 minutes, and I'm recommending a minute of an hour. And now we can see here's all the alerts. And in fact, you see me customize the grouping. Let's do a little more here. I'll group by name. And now I'm going to make a claim that I challenge someone to disprove, but 20% of your monitors are going to generate 80% of your alerts. So here we can see disk read latency has generated 8 out of the, whatever we have, 11 alerts here. And so if I can tune that particular monitor, I can reduce the alert volume. And let's make the assumption that these are unnecessary alerts. So I can, as you select a monitor, you'll see down below we're displaying knowledge base article for that. And there's also a small section here called the alert components. In there, there's a link to the overrides. And what I recommend you do from here is just simply click on that link. MP Studio will open the management pack that was used in the test. It'll find the monitor that generated that alert, and it'll show you what overrides exist, if any. So right from here, you can do an operational task and edit those overrides. Okay, so looks like I had made some edits there, so it just wants to save those first. And so here's the monitor that was generating those alerts. It's bringing up the Manage Override dialog box for us now. Okay, I'm going to take a quick minute here to have a look at the questions, see if there's something else. Does MP Studio need a SQL Server to store its data? Oh, okay. So I see my coworker Daniel is all over those. Now, okay, so we're on top of those. So I ran a little bit beyond on that session by about 4 minutes, which is fine because I think we've got lots of extra time in the next session. And before I get started, I'm just going to pause for a quick drink. A quick drink of water, that is. Okay, so here's the overrides for that particular monitor that was generating the alerts. Okay, and so we can make some changes here and save that into the destination management pack, which you can see is the SCOM good override for Windows Server 2012 monitoring.